Hi everyone, it's Ali from Divine Miss Ruby Designs, and I'm just going to show you how to how I would edit some of your images. I've had a few come through that aren't very sharp. I'll still have a go at doing them, but yeah, we'll see how we go. This one is by Belinda at Little Pose Portraiture in Sydney. Belinda's actually used one of our floral wreaths, which I love seeing her images because she obviously gets a lot of use out of these wreaths, so that's good. To start with, I'm in Lightroom at the moment. My camera raw is updating. I couldn't open half the raw file, so I decided to bring it through Lightroom. So the first thing I do is reduce some highlights. Not that the highlights aren't too bad here. And I'm just going to lower the contrast, and straight away you can already see it's taken a little bit of redness out of the skin, and it's just made it a much softer place to start. So that is always my first step whenever I'm editing anytime. I always reduce the contrast, the highlights and the whites, so that you haven't got any real harsh hot spots. This baby doesn't anyway, but to really give you a soft place to start. Okay, so these controls are very similar to Camera Raw if that's what you use. That's virtually what Lightroom is Camera Raw and Bridge together. It's like cataloging and editing system. Alright, so because this one here is a lighter background and I won't be vignetting it on with a dark vignette, I am, just before I throw it into Photoshop, I'm just going to lighten up the edge there a bit. I don't want it to look white, but I just don't want those dark spots. Okay. And I'll just show you why. It's just cleaned up that area a little bit. I'm going to bring it back just a little bit just because. Sorry, I don't use vignettes very often in Lightroom anymore. I'm going to just do a gradient layer. So I'm just going to pull over this side just a little bit, and I'm just lower the contrast down. But I'm just upping the exposure a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. Just a little bit. And because on your lighter backdrops, you want them, to look creamy, and you don't want those dark vignettes from your lens. Okay, so I'm now gonna, I think I'm going to throw it into Photoshop. So give me a minute. And I stuffed up on the last video. I thought I was recording and I pressed pause. I thought I'd unpress pause and it was still paused, and go all the way to the end of the edit and it was still paused. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that leaf, because if anyone else is particular like me, that will annoy them. Anything you find that's a little bit distracting on the background, most of this is okay, it's kind of just little bits of chip paint, which is normal. Okay, I'm going to create a second layer here for a moment, just so that when I use my selection tool and my command tool, I can just change slightly the perspective. Because with some of our lenses that we use and different angles that we shoot on, it changes our perspective a little bit. Because this is more of a centered image to begin with, just centering it a little bit more. You'll see what I'm talking about when I turn this off a little bit. It's just subtle, but if you want to ever straighten any of your boards and things like that, sometimes you just have to pull these sides out a little bit to do it. But you don't want to warp your baby too much either. So let it transform again. And I'm going to crop it in equally down here as well. I'll move it up on the two. Another big storm coming through here by the looks of it. Yep. And crop it, I think. I don't want to have to do too much full editing on these. Okay, so we'll merge those layers together. And I'm just now going to bring just a little bit more centered. Oh, sorry, I have a web crop preset set up. This would also make a really effective tight crop. Even slightly off center. And play around with. But I tend to not crop out of camera, I crop in camera so that you're not losing any of your resolution and quality. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to lighten the skin reds. Bubby is a little bit pink. So with a soft brush, and I'm using the Kelly Brown Actions. No, I'm not affiliated with her, but I love her stuff. I'm not going to leave Bobby. Now you need to be careful when working around a pink wrap, because if you go and remove the reds, well, there's obviously a lot of reds in pink. So you don't want to remove your colour out of your headband or your wrap. You need to do under the head of under the hair as well. And the main reason for that is because the skin is still red under there. I try and leave the lips red because I just think babies look nice with red lips. Now I'm not going to leave like that. She looks a little bit like a ghost. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce both the fill and the opacity down 50%. You've seen it's taken the majority of it out. And she still has a little bit of a red mark around here. So we might run the skin reds over her again. And sometimes you'll get a colour cast off your headbands and things like that, and that could be what this is, but she looks like she's got a little bit of a... It could be a cast, it could be a colour cast. I'm just checking anything else that's really red. Feet look good. And same thing, we want to just take that down a bit, and I change the fill level too. Okay, just to minimise that red. You don't want it to look like a line either where you've done it. Okay, she needs a little bit of skin retouching, so I'll just do a little bit. She's got a little bit of a milky lip, a little bit of dry skin. I'm not going to do frequency separation on her. I'm just going to do a basic skin edit. So using the healing brush tool, select the area around. and everyone has different ways of doing this. I typically now use frequency separation, and of course my updates coming through, so sorry, hopefully it won't take too long. I'll pause while it does this. Okay, so what were we doing? We were skin editing. So I'm just using the healing brush. And remember, you don't want to, do something from the nose and the cheek, because the skin texture is actually different. Whereas the cheek texture is the same. So I'm not being overly fussy, but just clean up some of those areas. I'm sure everyone's getting hit with some rain and some stormy weather tonight. It's a bit crazy weather we've got going on here. Okay, she looks pretty good. The little tiny corners of the mouth are always hard. No, we'll take a picture. So that's what it was. I'll just clean the skin up a little bit. Alright. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the skin details app. Oh. Yeah, not quite sure what I did then. Hit something. So we're going to use the soften baby skin. And if I was doing frequency separation, I wouldn't do this. I will find an image to do on frequency separation at some point. Okay, so we want to change back to a soft brush. And you want to avoid her hairline and edges, because this is basically like a blurring. It's possibly even like a frequency separation. You still want her to have some details, so you don't want to lose those little shadows and things like that. See how it's picked up then? So I'm going to do that section again. I'm not just going all over it, because you want to keep that definition, and those shadows are really important. So if you're doing the eye line, just make sure you keep away from your eyelashes. So if you just keep away from makeup everywhere, I'll leave that. And because you do a face, I would just lightly do over a hand. I'm going to reduce the opacity dramatically on this anyway, just so that it's all kind of a bit smooth. Okay, so turn that off. And it kind of reduces your highlights a little bit, so I'm going to reduce mine to 50% opacity and 50% fill. And that's what it was, and that's what it is. So it's a little bit subtle. I'll take the fill back up to 70 or 80. Alright, let's take a picture of that. So that's what she was. So it's just softened her skin a little bit. Now, with little white babies, who's creamy skin, if I was doing an Indian baby or another little baby that may have a different skin colour, I change the colour that's over here to something that matches their current skin tone, and it works fine. So you can still get that more even kind of skin. Alright, and same again, I'll take that back to about 20%. And it's just giving her a little bit more peachy skin. Alright, so now we're ready to really start. So, my first thing, as always, is to add some contrast. But when I add contrast, I don't want to add too much depth into the you don't really lose your detailing like your curly felt and things like that here. So I'm just going to mask back in those shadow type areas around her body. Okay. So you can see there's a bit of contrast, and that's fine. And if you want to reduce your shadows over here, you can excuse me, mask that back a bit. But that contrast helps get Bubby's shadows right. I'm not going to vignette like I said before, because I'll show you what would happen if I vignetted it. Although Photoshop's vignette is a bit different to Lightroom's. So I would do didn't work because of my wallets. So I would do, try that again. So doing an elliptical. Why is that letting me do an elliptical? It just darkened it. Sometimes when you add a vignette, it goes grey and blacky, and it can really wash out your colours. I'm torn, so let's just take it back to 30% and 50% fill. So it's there, but it's not. Alright. You could really blow your edges the same way if you wanted to. I'll blow them a little bit. Belinda's backdrop's not overpowering, so I don't find it distracting or anything. And it's not creased or any issues like that. And same again, 50 and 50 roughly. It just softens it a little bit. Now, if you found things like this distracting, like where the boards are, you can certainly go to your brush tool, right click and go to the mixer brush tool. These are the settings I have just kind of all the time. And then what you can do is just kind of blend them in a bit. But what it does, it's like painting. So it will drag you, kind of let you paint around. So if I keep going like this, it's a bad example, but if I went like this, it would probably create like grey stuff there. So I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to mix and brush it because it doesn't bother me. But you could do that if you really had a problem. Alright, so I'm going to warm wash it. Oh, it's pretty. and I always change mine back to about 25 and from 30 to about 15% when it works. So that's where we were, and then that was cropped, and then that's where we are now. Alright, so I'm going to go to my color balance and increase my shadows on the reds by about 5, and in the mid-tones I'm going to bring it back about the same. It's subtle, it just gives a bit more warmth into your shadows. In her face, because she's lit from the right, her shadow, she's got shadow on her right hand side of her face. So it is rather pink. So you could bring up your hue and saturation and just lighten it a little bit, or you could drag your saturation, but you don't want to take it down so much that you lose the skin reds, because those skin reds are kind of important for baby skin. Oops, I'm doing it on the wrong one anyway. So we would go to reds and just lighten it a little bit. Okay, it's just taken that real red out. Alright, I normally darken because I'm normally on darker backdrops, but I'm not going to do it here. I'll take it off. Excuse me. You could add another contrast to try and get her shadows up again, and I would still mask back all this area here with felt. Make sure you're on the brush tool, not on the mixer brush tool. And it's just given her that little bit more of a pop again. Alright, so the next thing I do is go to my exposure and slide a little bit to the right, because I always have that hazy type feel to my work. And preview it, you know, you just got to do it to your own taste. Sometimes you only need it ever so slightly just to give that little hazy, softened type feel. Now I'm going to warm her up just a little bit. So sometimes I'll do a warm up here, or I'll do the soft warm again. So I'm going to do the soft warm on this one. I'm going to turn off the white. No, I'm not. I'm going to do exactly what I normally do and just reduce it by about half. So I just want to warm her up a little bit more. Let's just give it a little bit more depth again there too. Alright. Give her a little bit of some. Everything's pink in this one. I don't shoot much with pink. I change this colour. I go a little bit more up to the reds and make it a little bit more like a rougey colour. It's only 8%, so it's nothing drastic anyway. It's very subtle. It's really, really subtle. Okay, now I'm going to do a new layer. And I could be doing all this backwards today. Soft light. I'm going to burn in some shadows. This is another good way of trying to get a little bit more definition. Shadows, and remembering that, you know, if you go too much, you can always change the opacity back. So you want to follow the basic shadows that already exist there. Okay, she's got little shadows under the nose, she's got shadows under here. I generally do the hair a bit more. These little shadows here. And sometimes I'll just take the brightness down on wraps and things like that. So it is very subtle, but it just gives her a little bit more definition. And I'm just going to pull back the fill to about 60 or 70%. Okay. I'm going to do one thing. I'm just going to create a duplicate layer, just in case I don't like what I do. And I'm just going to fill out her wrap a little bit. And this is good if you're wrapping a baby and they, you know how some babies look a little bit bony and they look a bit, this baby doesn't, but you know, some babies are quite skinny and they look quite lumpy when you wrap them. This is another good way of just neatening it up, making them all look a little bit neater. Go back and do that because I think I pulled something out. I did. I wasn't watching what I was doing. Someone asked me how long it should take to edit. Everyone's different. I generally take about 10 minutes an image from start to finish. But I've got a really good workflow. So what you need to do is really get your workflow happening. Get your workflow where you want it to be. Okay? And if you establish a really good workflow meaning you do the same thing on every image. You shoot the same, therefore in camera they all generally look the same. But they also means that your treatment on them all can be the same and you'll get that consistency through your work. So for me, I always use my same things. I'll go up and down on that action set. But I use it, I mean, it's always the same when I do the soft warm wash. It's always so if you get your stuff right in camera first, so your white balance is good, your exposure's good, you've always got a nice place to start. So I'll go from the cropped version, and that's where we're at. Pretty simple, nice, warm, not over processed. Baby looks beautiful. Belinda does a really good job editing anyway, but it was nice to play with something. You know, I like. It's funny, I'm a florist by trade, and hence why I do the floral wreaths. but I don't use many flowers in my own work. I love seeing it in everyone else's work, but I think I'm too critical of what I do, and therefore I don't love it. So this looks beautiful. It's really nice to see it. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks.